So here it is. This is the third video of this three that I'm filming in a row. I'm not getting too tired of reviewing, so hopefully this one will be just as much fun to do as the previous two. And I'm going to be talking about the movie that could only be made in South America, where life is cheap, Snuff. So the movie was originally released as The Slaughter, which was directed by Michael and Roberta Findlay. Sorry, just checking, because it doesn't really matter. Because the bit that the film is notorious for was devised by Alan Shackleton, a distributor who picked the film up after sitting on the shelf basically for 5 years, filmed a new ending, and spread the rumour that the movie was a genuine snuff movie, that it contained an actual murder on screen. So the plot of the movie concerns basically a sort of Charlie Manson type cult of these women who are part of this satanic organisation led by a guy called Satan, Subtle, which, you know, commits similar murders to kind of the Manson family type thing. Meanwhile, this American actress travels to South America to promote a film, I believe, and I mean, it's not totally clear, but she's there on some sort of business, and although you never get to see her do any acting or anything like that. And while there, she meets up with her boyfriend, who she knows from back in America, where they met up, and yeah, they generally have a good time, and she becomes a target for either recruitment or murder by the cult. Of course, this whole plot is totally immaterial, because the whole thing that the movie is known for is the concluding scene in which the director yells cut and an actress is killed for real by the crew. And I mean, this whole thing, this final scene is what the movie is notorious for. It's really nothing to do with the actual film itself. And let's be honest here, the movie itself is bad. It is a bad movie. It's poorly made. You know, there's a lot of, you know, there must have at the last minute been changing the kind of plot of the movie, because there's a lot of scenes where the dialogue is clearly dubbed and it's clearly different from what the actors on screen are saying. So I would imagine that this movie, there was big changes to the script during post-production, and yeah, this is the movie that we ended up with as a result. It's not particularly well acted really at all. There's a bunch of scenes that don't really make any sense and just go on far too long, and it gets very repetitive, and all of the murders just aren't really that interesting, despite their kind of sleaziness with this whole cult concept. But I mean, let's talk about the ending, because the ending is ultimately the interesting part of the movie, because that was something that was so different at the time, was this idea of breaking the fourth wall in that way, of it kind of splitting away from being a movie to being, you know, something that is supposedly kind of documenting a real event. You know, it's the kind of thing that Cannibal Holocaust would use to its advantage massively in kind of the coming years after this movie. Here, it's not particularly well done at all, it's got to be said. I mean, it goes... you know, it's clearly a split. It's clearly not the same context that this ending was made in to the rest of the movie. You know, the set looks fairly different. You know, the actress is different. All of this type of stuff. But at the time, that transition was so jarring, I think, that people were caught up in this whole kind of idea that this was a genuine murder caught on film, despite the fact that when you watch it, it's not in the slightest bit convincing that you're actually seeing someone be murdered. You know, all of the special effects are weak. Let's be honest, they're weak. You know, there's one scene where there's, you know, the woman gets her hand cut off, and you know, you can quite clearly see where it's the hand sticking up through the duvet, and like a fake hand, you know, where the skin tone doesn't match up properly, you know, on the bed, and the hand's twitching around and whatever. You know, and the general, you know, the disembowelment scenes and whatnot, it just all looks really sort of silly, and you know, like people, you know, these actors holding up these guts and, you know, pretending to be these blood-hungry monsters when, you know, actually they're trying not to laugh, you know, quite clearly. You know, this movie in itself is not particularly interesting. I've got to say, what it is interesting for is the context of it, you know, the promotion of it, the fact that they kind of used this idea of a film where someone dies on the street to kind of pique people's morbid curiosity. I've no doubt that in 1976 there probably were a lot of people who genuinely believed they'd seen something real, you know. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, Paranormal Activity came out, and I knew people who genuinely thought they'd seen a real, you know, film made out of security footage where, you know, ghosts were attacking this family. I genuinely knew people who thought that. So I for one have no problem believing that that would have been the case with this. Overall, that is the interesting thing about this movie, is that marketing campaign and the kind of controversy that it caused. You know, obviously the film, you know, had a later kind of re-energisation in the video nasty scare of the early to mid 80s in the UK, and at the time of the making of the Video Nasty, the Jake West's Video Nasty's Moral Panic, Censorship and Videotape documentary, Graham Bright, the MP who kind of led the campaign, still seemed to think that Snuff was a genuine Snuff movie, which is, you know, obviously hilarious, and it proves the kind of nonsense of the whole thing. But like I say, that's the interesting thing about Snuff, is the kind of folklore that surrounds it, I guess, rather than the film itself. The film itself is crap. Really, let's be honest. There are some interesting things about it. I mean, you know, the story is not the worst. You know, you could probably have made a vaguely interesting film out of those elements. Unfortunately, it didn't really come off here at all. I'm going to give Snuff a 4 out of 10. This is an avoid for me, I've got to say. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Please do like, comment and subscribe. All of that would be really cool. If you want to be extra cool, go down and check out my podcast. The link is in the description. It's called Ironcast. It's all about music. I'm sure you'll find something there that will pique your interest. Also, why not go down even further and find my Amazon wishlist, and if you want to be really, really awesome, you could order me something off of that. Say you really like my reviews or something, and there's something on there that you really want to see me review. If you do that, I will definitely review the film that you order for me, because that is just the coolest thing you could do to support this channel. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you again very soon.